A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the imported solution. This song examines the market reality of sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, in Canada. Despite the push to use Canadian-grown canola for biofuel, major players like Air Canada are sourcing their SAF from foreign companies like Nest, a Finnish company. This is because Nest uses waste feedstocks, like used cooking oil and animal fats, instead of virgin crops. The waste-based approach is often considered more environmentally friendly, as it avoids the land use change issues highlighted in Song 2. Furthermore, Canadian producers lack the operational infrastructure and government incentives, like those in the US, to be competitive. The scenario highlights the irony of Canada importing a greener solution from abroad, while its own domestic industry struggles to get off the ground with a less desirable feedstock. A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the Markets Lament. The Chinese market, a major consumer of Canadian canola, implemented a tariff, causing a significant drop in prices and a surplus of canola. To offset this economic loss, the Canadian canola industry looks to a new domestic market created by the clean fuel regulations. However, this new market is dominated by cheaper, imported waste feedstocks like used cooking oil, which is heavily subsidized by the US. Instead of a new opportunity, the canola industry finds itself in an economic crisis, lobbying the government for protectionist measures. The situation highlights the conflict between economic survival and environmental policy.
A silent crisis, no bugle call, just a steady drop of price. Since China's levied a heavy hand to break our canola's mind. Millions in value vanished like steam, a harvest worth unmade. So we turn our eyes to a new green dream, a market to be played. The markets lament. Oh, can you hear voices of the farmers filled with fear? Harmonica wails the pain we can't conceal in the shadows of this trade. Our struggles all too real. The clean fuel regulations, a policy's grand design, a new domestic market where our golden fields can shine. But there's a quiet war on this home front, a whisper turning loud, a cheaper feedstock's eating our lunch, a gathering storm cloud. The waste oil from 1,000 fries imported to our shore. It's taking our market share. The industry cries when we need it most and more. We lobby for guardrails to hold back the tide, to keep the market clear. This isn't about sales, trade, a new place to make a sale, a fragile future, a path we've made as the old trade starts to fail. With every drop that hits the ground, we fight to find our light. It's more than just the profit line, it's a chance to do what's right. The markets lament, oh, can you hear? Voices of the farmers filled with fear. A harmonica wails the pain we can't conceal in the shadows of this trade. Our struggles all too real. So gather around, let's raise a glass to dreams that might come true, for the farmers and the fields in this fight. We stand true. The harmonica plays our story strong in the blues of our plight. Together we'll rise from the dark into the
Using YouTube on a desktop computer, you can navigate within this song collection from within the description field. This is a very cool feature of YouTube, and here's how that works. First, click on the description field below the video screen, and it will drop down. You will see a list of audio files with a time underneath each one in hours, minutes, and seconds. When you click on the time in the left column, that gets you to the specific audio you want in the YouTube video screen above. The right column is the running time of the original sound file used to make this audio. So to recap, to select an individual song or audio file from the list and seek to the bookmark time of the audio in this video podcast or album, whatever you want to call it, click on the time in the left column of the list below the audio of your choice, and it will jump to the audio that your heart desires. One final note. The list of times of each MP3 file in these types of lists rounds down in time, so in a long list the accuracy is somewhat lost due to rounding errors. I have not bothered to fine-tune this in the code that I wrote, preferring to keep things simple, so you may be plunked into the very end of the previous audio. But that's probably no hardship. I should also mention that when I say click, I often mean double-click. And now enjoy the music, and consider going full screen.
The silent crisis, no bugle call, just a steady drop of price. Since China's levy a heavy hand to break our canola's mind, a market to be played. The market's lament, oh, can you hear voices of the farmers filled with fear? A harmonica wails a pain we can't conceal. In the shadows of this trade, our struggles all too real. The clean fuel regulations, a policy's grand design, a new domestic market where our golden fields can shine. But there's a quiet war on this home front, a whisper turning loud, a cheaper feedstocks eating our lunch, a gathering storm cloud. The waste oil from 1,000 fries imported to our shore, it's taking our market share. The industry cries when we need it most and more. We lobby for guardrails to hold back the tide, to keep the market clear. This isn't about saving the climate, no place to run or hide. This is an economic engine driven by fear. The market's limit, oh, can you hear voices of the farmers filled with fear? A harmonica wails the pain we can't conceal. In the shadows of this trade, our struggles all too real. The push for fuel, a simple trade, a new place to make a sale, a fragile future, a path we've made as the old trade starts to fail. With every drop that hits the ground, we fight to find our light. It's more than just the profit line, it's a chance to do what's right. The market's limit, oh, can you hear voices of the farmers filled with
Part 1. The Canola Conundrum. Canola in Crisis 2025. By Bill Buckles, analyst and Lake Winnipeg commercial fisher. August 16, 2025. Executive Summary. This report provides a comprehensive analysis of the environmental, economic, and ethical dimensions of expanding canola-based biofuel production in Canada. The inquiry is driven by two central questions. Is burning canola for fuel genuinely better for the environment, and is it appropriate to use a food crop for this purpose? The analysis, drawing on a synthesis of peer-reviewed research, industry reports, and economic data, reveals that the answer is not a simple affirmation. While canola-derived biofuels offer significant greenhouse gas (GHG) reductions in a controlled best-case scenario, up to 90% compared to fossil diesel, their widespread application as a primary feedstock raises serious environmental and ethical concerns. The environmental benefit is highly conditional. A full life cycle assessment (LCA) demonstrates that the GHG reduction promise is heavily dependent on avoiding land use change, a major driver of carbon emissions. The large-scale cultivation required for a market expansion carries significant risks of habitat destruction, biodiversity loss, and soil degradation. Furthermore, the ethical and economic appropriateness of using a food crop for fuel is a complex global issue. Historical data from international bodies like the World Bank, IMF, and the UN consistently link biofuel mandates to significant spikes in global food prices, a burden that disproportionately affects vulnerable populations. While the production process yields a valuable animal feed byproduct, the diversion of canola oil from the food supply chain creates market volatility and raises a fundamental question of priority in a world with growing food demands. This report concludes that the current push for canola biofuel is primarily an economic response to trade disruptions, not a holistic environmental strategy. A truly sustainable path forward for Canada's clean fuel industry would prioritize the use of waste-based feedstocks, such as used cooking oil, which LCA studies show offer superior environmental benefits without the direct ethical conflict of competing with the global food supply. 1. The economic impetus. Diversifying a vulnerable market. The narrative surrounding the expansion of canola-based biofuel production in Canada is often framed as a proactive environmental strategy. However, a deeper examination of the market dynamics reveals that the primary impetus is an economic imperative to find new outlets for a commodity facing significant trade disruptions. This section explores the underlying financial pressures and policy drivers that are shaping the industry's direction. 1.1 The post-China tariff landscape, a market in crisis. The current push for market diversification is a direct response to recent economic pressures. China, a critical market for Canadian canola, imposed anti-dumping duties on Canadian canola seed and enacted 100% tariffs on canola oil and meal. This sudden and substantial trade disruption caused canola prices to drop and wiped out millions of dollars in canola value at SUP1/SUP. Faced with this unpredictability, Canadian industry leaders had been actively seeking to diversify their markets even before the full impact of the tariffs was felt. This search for alternative revenue streams led them to identify a significant opportunity in the growing biofuel sector within both Canada and the United States. SUP3/SUP. 1.2 Policy drivers and market dynamics, creating new demand. The economic viability of this strategic shift is heavily reliant on a supportive policy environment. The Canadian government's Clean Fuel Regulations, CFR, are a central driver, requiring transportation fuels in Canada to achieve an incremental carbon intensity reduction of 15% by 2030. SUP4/SUP. This policy provides a market certainty that the entire biofuel supply chain, from farmers to renewable fuel producers, needs to justify new investments. Concurrently, U.S. policy plays a significant role in creating a robust continental market. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has already delivered a final rule that allows canola oil-derived renewable diesel, RD, and sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, to qualify as advanced biofuels under its Renewable Fuel Standard RFS program. SUP5/SUP the USDA projects that more than half of U.S.-produced soybean oil will be used for biofuels, which, given the close price linkage between canola and soybean oil, creates strong demand and price support for Canadian canola. Sup 6/ Sup 1.3 The underlying economic motivation. While the narrative is couched in environmental terms, the industry's actions reveal that the primary driver is economic protection. The Canadian Oilseed Processors Association, COPA, openly states that canola is not currently the preferred feedstock for domestic biofuel production. Cheaper alternatives, such as used cooking oil and other waste oils, make up the bulk of the feedstock supply. Sup 1/Sup, this market reality is seen as a threat, with COPA's executive director expressing a desire for the federal clean fuel regulations to implement guardrails to prevent the use of questionable feedstocks and imported used cooking oil, as it is eating canola's lunch. Sup 1/Sup, this lobbying effort exposes a fundamental tension. The industry is not simply responding to a green mandate, but is actively seeking policies that would favor its product over a cheaper and, as the following sections will show, more environmentally sound alternative. This means the impetus is less about pursuing the most sustainable path and more about securing market share and addressing an immediate economic vulnerability. 2. The environmental equation: promises, perils, and the life cycle assessment. The core question of whether burning canola is truly better for the environment requires a multifaceted analysis that extends beyond simple comparisons of tailpipe emissions. The full environmental impact must be evaluated from a life cycle perspective, accounting for everything from cultivation to combustion. This section presents a nuanced view, juxtaposing the promising headline figures with the complex realities of agricultural production and land use. 2.1 The promise of low-carbon fuels. On the surface, the environmental case for canola-based biofuels appears compelling. The U.S. EPA's assessment confirmed that fuels derived from canola oil, such as renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel (SAF), far exceeded the 50% reduction threshold for advanced biofuels. Sup 5/Sup In fact, canola-based biofuels are reported to offer significantly lower life cycle GHG emissions by up to 90% compared to fossil diesel. Sup 5/Sup, these low-carbon advantages are attributed to the sustainable production practices of Canadian farmers. Furthermore, the fuels themselves possess an inherent environmental benefit in their biodegradability, with studies confirming that esters from canola can decompose completely within 28 days. Sup 7/Sup 2.2 The caveat: the critical role of land use change (LUC). The impressive GHG reduction figures, however, are highly conditional. A comprehensive life cycle assessment (LCA), which is the standard procedure for verifying the sustainability of biofuels, must account for the full range of environmental impacts. Sup 8/Sup, the widespread expansion of canola cultivation carries significant risks. As the demand for canola oil increases, there is a corresponding pressure for large-scale cultivation to expand into natural habitats such as grasslands and wetlands. This land use change can result in habitat loss, fragmentation, and a negative impact on local ecosystems. Sup 9/Sup, the practice of growing a single crop over a large area, known as monoculture farming, leads to a loss of biodiversity, soil degradation, and increased pest and disease pressure. Sup 9/Sup Additionally, the cultivation of canola requires substantial water and the use of fertilizers and pesticides, which can lead to the contamination of waterways and eutrophication. Sup 9/Sup life cycle analyses demonstrate that estimates for GHG reductions from biofuels vary significantly based on feedstock type, and most critically, on land use change and other methodological assumptions. Sup 11/Sup 2.3 The nuance of the GHG claim. The up to 90% GHG reduction is a maximum potential, not a guaranteed outcome. The true environmental cost is conditional on whether the expansion of cultivation leads to the conversion of new land, a factor that can negate the carbon benefits. A confidential World Bank report found that biofuel production contributed to a 75% increase in global food prices, and a UN report warned that the conversion of wild forests and grasslands to energy crops could have negative environmental impacts, including increased GHG emissions. SUP 12/SUP. This demonstrates that the environmental benefit is not inherent to the fuel itself, but to the entire production system. If the pursuit of biofuel demand leads to the conversion of new land, the environmental benefit may be negligible or even negative, directly contradicting the central premise of the proposition. A truly holistic environmental benefit must avoid these downstream consequences, a reality that complicates the simple carbon reduction narrative. 3. The contradiction of corporate policy and the question of domestic supply. A key point of contention is why Canada would consider importing sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, from Australia, particularly when its own canola farmers are struggling with a disrupted market. The reality, however, is not a simple case of purchasing from a foreign competitor. Instead, it highlights a critical gap in Canada's domestic clean fuel production infrastructure. 3.1 SAF imports, a strategic, not a competitive, choice. The reports of Air Canada purchasing SAF from Australia are partially misleading. In a November 2024 agreement, Air Canada signed a deal to purchase 77.6 million liters of SAF from Nest, a Finnish company that is a leading global producer of the fuel. SUP 23/SUP, the fuel, which was to be delivered to the Vancouver Marine Terminal starting in December 2024, was sourced by Nest, not directly from an Australian producer. SUP 25/SUP, crucially, the SAF Nest produces is made from 100% renewable waste and residue raw materials, such as used cooking oil and animal fat. Waste, SUP 23/SUP. This feedstock is a direct competitor to canola oil in the biofuel market and is considered a more environmentally friendly option. SUP 1/SUP, the fact that Canada's own SAF production is still in a nascent state is the primary reason for these imports. While Canadian companies are exploring the production of SAF from various feedstocks, including canola oil, SUP 29/SUP, and a pilot project has successfully produced Canada's first-ever batch of SAF, there are currently no operational SAF plants in the country. SUP 6/SUP. Canada's ability to produce a domestic, cost-competitive SAF remains a challenge due to factors like high capital costs, competition for feedstocks, and a lack of explicit policy incentives compared to countries like the United States, which offers generous production tax credits. SUP 11/SUP. 3.2 Farmer overproduction versus geopolitical conflict. The assertion that the current crisis for canola farmers is due to overproduction is not supported by recent data. In fact, Statistics Canada data from 2024 shows that national canola production decreased by 7% compared to the previous year. SUP 31/SUP. This decline was driven by lower yields and a slight decrease in harvested area. SUP 31/SUP. The primary cause of the market disruption is not an oversupply of canola, but a deliberate act of economic coercion by the Chinese government. SUP 32/SUP. The imposition of a 75.8% tariff on canola seed and 100% tariffs on canola oil and meal is widely believed to be a retaliatory measure for Canada's imposition of tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. SUP 33/SUP. This political and economic conflict, rather than a failure of agricultural supply management, is the root cause of the market instability and the financial hardship facing Canadian farmers. SUP 32/SUP. 4. A deeper dive into the agricultural footprint, the true cost of cultivation. The conversation around canola-based biofuels must extend beyond simple GHG emissions reductions and address the full life cycle of the crop, including its impact on soil health and freshwater systems. 4.10 Tillage and conventional crops, a more fitting land use? One of the most promising strategies for sustainable agriculture in the Canadian prairies is the adoption of zero-tillage practices, often in rotation with conventional food crops like wheat and barley. SUP 9/SUP. Zero-tillage, which involves minimal soil disturbance, has been shown to have numerous environmental benefits. It improves soil structure and water retention, reduces soil erosion, and enhances the soil's organic matter content, which in turn leads to increased carbon sequestration. SUP35/SUP. This practice, along with others like reduced summer fallow, has contributed to a positive trend in soil organic carbon levels since the 1990s. SUP36/SUP. The intensive farming of a single crop over a large area, known as monoculture, can lead to a loss of biodiversity and soil degradation. SUP9/SUP. However, by rotating canola with other conventional food crops, farmers can mitigate some of these negative effects. SUP9/SUP. These integrated farming systems, which combine economic viability with environmental stewardship, represent a more balanced and fitting approach to land use than a singular focus on a biofuel feedstock. For point 2, the pollution cost, pesticides, fertilizers, and freshwater damage. The expansion of any large-scale crop, including canola, comes with a significant environmental cost in the form of chemical inputs. Canola cultivation requires substantial water and the use of fertilizers and pesticides. SUP9/SUP. The runoff from these agricultural inputs can have devastating effects on freshwater ecosystems. Fertilizers, in particular, can lead to eutrophication, a process where excessive nutrient loads cause dense algal blooms that deplete oxygen and kill aquatic life. SUP9/SUP. This is not a hypothetical risk, but a present reality in Canada. The health of Lake Winnipeg, the 10th largest freshwater lake in the world, has deteriorated significantly over the last 3 decades, with evidence pointing to excessive nutrient enrichment from phosphorus as the primary cause. SUP37/SUP. The Red River, which drains a significant portion of the agricultural prairies, is the single largest source of phosphorus, accounting for 69% of the average total load into the lake. SUP38/SUP. While water management practices that retain nutrient-rich runoff show promise, the sheer volume of agricultural activity poses a persistent threat to freshwater resources. SUP37/SUP. 5. The question of land, conservation or cultivation. In light of the documented environmental costs of large-scale agriculture, a fundamental question emerges. Would a land be best left as a natural reserve rather than being cultivated and damaging the freshwater? The research overwhelmingly supports a greater focus on conservation. 5.1 The value of native grasslands and wetlands. Canada's native grasslands and wetlands are among the most threatened ecosystems in the world. SUP39/SUP. An estimated 74% of Canada's native grasslands have already been lost. SUP39/SUP. These areas are not empty or unproductive. They are vital hotspots of biodiversity that provide a multitude of essential ecosystem services. SUP39/SUP. They serve as critical habitats for hundreds of wildlife species, including migratory birds and species at risk. SUP40/SUP. Their deep roots protect soil from erosion, store immense amounts of carbon, and enrich the soil. SUP39/SUP. They also naturally filter water, help mitigate flooding, and provide pollination services. SUP39/SUP. The conversion of these lands to annual cropping systems, even for a green crop like canola, is a major driver of biodiversity loss, with more than half of Canada's grassland birds having disappeared since 1970. SUP40/SUP. As one conservation organization warns, there is no substitute for intact prairie. SUP40/SUP. 5.2 The true trade-off. The question of conservation or cultivation is a profound one. It forces a choice between short-term economic gains from commodity production and the long-term ecological and public benefits of a healthy, intact natural environment. While agriculture is necessary to feed people, the expansion of cultivation for non-essential purposes, such as biofuel, directly competes with the preservation of these critical ecosystems. SUP39/SUP. A holistic assessment of land use must recognize that the ecological services provided by a natural reserve, from water purification to carbon sequestration and biodiversity preservation, are of immense and often unquantified value. The degradation of freshwater bodies like Lake Winnipeg demonstrates that the cost of chemical runoff and land use change is borne by everyone, making the argument for conservation not just an environmental one, but a matter of public health and economic prudence. Part 2. The Canola Conundrum. Canola in Crisis 2025. By Bill Buckles, analyst and Lake Winnipeg commercial fisher. August 16, 2025. 6. The Food versus Fuel Debate, a question of global priority. The second key question posed by this inquiry is the ethical appropriateness of using a food crop for fuel, especially given that it can be consumed by people, livestock, and poultry. This issue is not a simple binary choice, but a complex economic and ethical trade-off that has been extensively studied on a global scale. 6.1. The global precedent for price volatility. The diversion of food crops to biofuel production has been repeatedly linked to increases in global food prices and heightened volatility. A confidential World Bank report, based on a detailed analysis, found that biofuels were responsible for a 75% increase in food prices between 2002 and 2008. SUP12/SUP, a review of over 100 economic models, concluded that biofuel policies could lead to significant price increases, ranging from 16% to 171% per exajoule of biofuel produced, with EU vegetable oils having the highest impact. SUP14/SUP, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, found that biofuel demand has not only led to higher corn and soybean prices, it has also resulted in price increases on substitution crops and increased the cost of livestock feed. SUP15/SUP, the diversion of a food crop like canola for biofuel reduces the supply available for food products, which drives up prices. SUP17/SUP, this effect creates a domino effect, as the demand for biofuel feedstocks increases the prices for other crops that compete for the same land, such as wheat and barley. SUP18/SUP, these price increases disproportionately affect the urban poor and rural households in developing countries where food expenditure is a larger share of household income. SUP14/SUP. 6.2. The canola value chain, more than just oil. A crucial counterpoint to the food versus fuel moniker is that canola is a dual-purpose commodity. The extraction of oil for fuel or food produces a valuable byproduct, canola meal. The meal constitutes a significant portion of the dry matter, approximately 35–44%, and is a widely used and nutritious protein source for livestock, poultry, and fish. SUP19/SUP is often used as a substitute for soybean meal and has a high content of essential amino acids. The meal can even be processed for human consumption, with its protein isolates receiving generally recognized as safe status from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. SUP20/SUP. This aspect of the value chain means the question is not about destroying the entire crop, but about how to prioritize its valuable components. The industry contends that better crop and oil yields can meet demand without taking land away from other uses, potentially mitigating the food-related concerns. SUP21/SUP. 6.3. The ethical and economic trade-off. The choice to use canola for fuel is not a simple binary between food and energy. It is a complex economic and ethical trade-off that exists within a single, integrated value chain. While the meal provides a valuable source of feed, the diversion of the oil from the food supply still creates market tension and competition. SUP17/SUP. The ethical question is whether the economic benefit to Canadian farmers, who can stabilize their livelihoods in the face of trade volatility, outweighs the documented risk of contributing to global food price volatility and its impact on vulnerable populations. A report from Purdue Extension estimated that the cost to the U.S. animal production sector alone from higher feed prices was in the billions of dollars per year. SUP18/SUP. This demonstrates that Canada's entry into the global biofuel market, while providing domestic economic stability, contributes to a broader system of trade-offs and risks that have serious consequences for both domestic animal agriculture and global food security. 7. The market and policy landscape, competition, and the future frontier. The complexities of the environmental and ethical arguments are further compounded by the realities of the Canadian clean fuel market. Canola does not exist in a vacuum. It faces stiff competition from other feedstocks that offer compelling environmental and economic advantages. 7.1 The cleaner competition: used cooking oil and waste feedstocks. Within the Canadian biofuel market, canola is not the preferred feedstock. The CTV News report explicitly states that domestic biofuel production is growing, but canola isn't the preferred feedstock at SUP1/SUP. Instead, cheaper and more readily available waste oils, such as used cooking oil, UCO, make up the bulk of the biofuel feedstock at SUP1/SUP. A life cycle assessment showed that using waste oil has a positive effect on all impact categories and offers a 77% reduction in global warming potential compared to fossil fuels. SUP7/SUP. This evidence reveals a clear environmental preference for waste-based feedstocks, which do not create the ethical conflict of using a food crop. The fact that the Canadian Oilseed Processors Association is actively lobbying for guardrails to protect its market share from imported UCO demonstrates that the industry's economic interests are in direct conflict with a more sustainable and ethical biofuel pathway. 7.2 The contradiction of corporate strategy. This tension between economic interests and environmental principles is clearly reflected in the actions of major corporate players. While the canola industry lobbies for a market advantage, corporations are already signaling a preference for a more sustainable biofuel pathway. Air Canada, for example, made its first large-scale commercial purchase of sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, from a producer that generates its fuel from 100% renewable waste and residue raw materials, like used cooking oil and animal fat waste, to SUP23/SUP. This decision, made by a company committed to reducing its greenhouse gas emissions, demonstrates a practical preference for a feedstock that does not compete with the food supply and offers a superior environmental profile. This creates a compelling contradiction where industry lobbying for a certain policy outcome is undermined by the real-world, market-driven actions of key corporate players prioritizing the most sustainable and ethically sound solutions. The future of a Canadian clean fuels industry may not, and perhaps should not, be centered on canola, but rather on the more promising frontier of waste-based feedstocks. Conclusion. Based on a comprehensive review of the available evidence, the central questions of whether burning canola for fuel is truly better for the environment, and if it is appropriate to use a food crop for this purpose, can be answered with a qualified and nuanced response. The data indicates that the environmental and ethical viability of canola-based biofuel production is highly conditional and fraught with complex trade-offs. The environmental question. The environmental benefit of canola-based biofuel is not a simple, inherent characteristic, but rather a conditional outcome. While the fuel itself can offer significant GHG reductions in an idealized life cycle model, this benefit can be negated by the very act of scaling up production. The risks of land use change, habitat loss, and soil degradation associated with large-scale monoculture farming present a significant counterpoint to the promising GHG figures. A full life cycle assessment reveals that a more consistently positive environmental outcome is achieved through the use of waste-based feedstocks like used cooking oil, which LCA studies have shown to be superior in a variety of impact categories without requiring the cultivation of new land. The damage to freshwater systems from fertilizer and pesticide runoff is a critical, often overlooked, externality that further complicates the environmental calculus. The food versus fuel question. The ethical and economic appropriateness of using a food crop for fuel is a complex global issue. While the production process yields a valuable byproduct in canola meal that is critical for animal feed, the diversion of the oil for fuel contributes to global market tensions. A robust body of evidence from international organizations consistently links biofuel policies to food price volatility, a burden that disproportionately affects the world's most vulnerable populations. While the economic imperative to find new markets for Canadian canola is clear, this domestic benefit must be weighed against its contribution to a global system that places food and fuel in direct competition. The question of land. Finally, the discussion of land use presents a compelling argument against the expansion of cultivation for biofuel. The ecological value of native grasslands and wetlands is immense, providing crucial services like carbon sequestration, biodiversity, and water filtration. The conversion of these lands, even with sustainable farming practices, leads to significant environmental losses. The evidence suggests that for many areas, a more responsible and sustainable choice would be to preserve these lands as natural reserves, thereby protecting Canada's vital freshwater resources and biodiversity for future generations. In summary, the current push for canola biofuel is best understood as a pragmatic economic strategy to absorb a surplus commodity following a major trade disruption. Is not necessarily the most environmentally or ethically sound path available. A truly sustainable and innovative approach for Canada's clean fuel industry would prioritize the development and use of waste-based feedstocks, thereby fostering a circular economy that avoids the serious environmental and ethical conflicts inherent in the use of food crops for energy. A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario: the false green promise biofuels are often touted as a green solution, with claims of up to a 90% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. However, this figure is based on a limited scope, only measuring the emissions from production to combustion. It ignores the significant environmental impact of land use change required to grow the crops. As the demand for biofuel crops like canola increases, farmers are incentivized to clear forests, drain wetlands, and plow native grasslands. This destruction releases vast amounts of carbon stored in the soil, degrades ecosystems, and causes soil erosion. The song reveals the false promise of biofuels when the full life cycle analysis is considered, showing that the environmental cost can outweigh the claimed benefits.
They say our fuel reduces the gases, a claim of 90%, a cleaner promise for the masses, a truly pure intent. But the numbers only tell one tale, from the tailpipe to the sky. They fail to see the larger scale, a reason to deny. Chasing dreams of eco-hope, we dance in glossy light, but beneath the shining surface, something's not quite right. They spin a tale of greener fields, but where's the paradise? In the push for biofuels, we're paying a heavy price. Oh, the false green promise, it's a treacherous game. Beneath the pretty pictures lies an ugly shame. We ride the waves of progress, surfing on the lies, but the truth is crashing in, revealing our demise. For a life cycle's full accounting must include the broken ground, where new acres must be found for the tons it must abound. We clear the forests, drain the swamps, and plow the native side to feed the hungry biofuel pumps, a sin before our God. With monoculture's lonely fields, we've lost our rich array. The life it once held, it cannot yield, and its topsoil blows away. So take a look at what we've sown. It's not the dream they leaving us in growth. So we'll surf the truth together, let the tide wash us away. In the surf of green delusion, we'll find a better way. Let's reclaim tomorrow, make the right choice today. In the shadows of the promise, we'll light up right away. They say our fuel reduces the gases, a claim of 90%. A cleaner promise for the masses, a truly pure intent.
But the numbers only tell one tale, from the tailpipe to the sky. They fail to see the larger scale, a reason to deny.
Chasing dreams of eco-hope, we dance in glossy light. But beneath the shining surface, something's not quite right.
It's been a tale of greener fields, but where's the paradise?
A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the global price. This song addresses the food versus fuel debate. A key concern with using food crops for fuel is the impact on global food security and prices. Biofuel production increases demand for crops like canola, corn, and soy, which in turn drives up their prices. This not only affects the cost of food for consumers, but can also disrupt agricultural markets and harm developing countries. While the remaining canola meal can be used for animal feed, the primary oil is diverted to fuel, creating competition and price volatility in both the food and energy sectors. The scenario highlights the ethical dilemma of prioritizing energy needs over food needs.
The world is hungry, the prices rise, a fact no one can deny. When crops turn into fuel supplies, searching for a fundamental why.
We're living in a game that's rigged, a trend that just won't die. With every tick the fear so big, just look into our eyes.
Oh, the price keeps climbing high, while the farmers just wonder why. With every season slipping by, the world cries a hungry sigh.
A secret World Bank report reveals a 75% surge, a tragic link in desperate fields in this food price fuel dirge. The IMF sounds the alarm, a shifting scene they see. Biofuel demands bring real harm to markets once so free. Oh, the price keeps climbing high, while the farmers just wonder why. With every season slipping by, the world cries a hungry sigh. Chain of pain in this market of defeat. The meal that's left is for the feed, a protein source so grand, to feed the cows, pigs, and chickens across this promised land. But the oil is thin, the market tight, a competition's ruthless pull. The cost of oil's brilliant light, while we're longing for a full cup at all. A complex chain we need to heed. Sacrificing one when all combined is a bitter deed indeed. Sitting in this shadowed room, fingers tapping on the floor, searching for a sign of bloom in a world that's asking for more. Oh, the price keeps climbing high, while the farmers just wonder why. With every season slipping by, the world cries a hungry sigh. So here we stand, in the face of the global price. The struggle shared beneath the skies in the face of the global price. The world is hungry, the prices rise, a fact no one can deny. When crops turn into fuel supplies, a fundamental why. A secret World Bank report showed a 75% surge, a tragic link, a desperate mode of food price fuel dirge. Oh, the global price, it's a heavy toll. In the land of plenty, we're losing control. That hunger grows while we watch the rise. In a world painted blue with unspoken cries. The IMF has sounded the alarm on a shifting global scene. That biofuel demand has done real harm to markets once so clean. It drives up prices on our grain, our barley and our wheat. cost to farmers, a chain of pain and a market of defeat. Oh, the global price, it's a heavy toll. In the land of plenty, we're losing control. That hunger grows while we watch the rise in a world painted blue with unspoken cries. The meal that's left is used for feed, a protein source so grand, to feed the cows and pigs and chickens across this promised land. But the oil is gone, the market's tight, a competition's pull. The cost of that oil with its brilliant light is to make our cupboards full. Oh, the global price, it's a heavy toll. In the land of plenty, we're losing control. That hunger grows while we watch the rise in a world painted blue with unspoken cries. The food and fuel, they stand in one, a complex chain of need. And sacrificing one when it's all said and done is a hard and bitter deed. The rich get richer while the poor just cope. It's a cruel dance devoid of hope. Oh, the global price, it's a heavy toll. In the land of plenty, we're losing control. That hunger grows while we watch the rise in a world painted blue with unspoken cries. When will we learn to break the chain, to choose love and growth over hunger and pain? Let's unite as one, tear down these walls, for the price of our future is the price of us all.
A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the Silent Poison. This song focuses on the environmental impact of large-scale agriculture, particularly nutrient runoff. Growing a monoculture like canola requires heavy use of fertilizers and pesticides. When it rains, excess phosphorus and nitrogen from these fertilizers can be carried by rivers and streams into larger bodies of water. This leads to eutrophication, where the overabundance of nutrients causes massive algae blooms. The song uses Lake Winnipeg as a specific example which has suffered from years of this type of pollution, leading to dead zones and ecosystem collapse. The scenario reveals a hidden environmental cost of agriculture that is often overlooked in the push for biofuel production.
Yeah, we're looking at the fields, golden hues in sight, but underneath that beauty, there's a tale in the night. The silent poison creeping in the crops that we grow. With every single harvest, man, it's killing us slow. The yellow fields shining, a deceptive delight, but the truth lies hidden in the dark of the night. Spraying chemicals, raining on the soil so blessed, chasing off the pests, but we're just failing the test. Fertilizers pumping life with nitrogen, it's true, but it runs off in the storm. What's that do to me and you?
Oh, the beauty can blind us, we can't turn our backs. As the rivers run green, we've been through our cracks. Like when a pig's crying, can't you hear her plea? Our actions are poison, can't we start to see? He talks about the fields and the price we pay, but what are the streams where innocence decay? The algae is rising, making life go cold. In the murky depths, the dark secrets unfold. They say it's necessary, we gotta stay afloat, but at what cost, love, when our kindness is remote? Look at the Red River with that load on its back. Phosphorus flowing, we're losing track.
Oh, the beauty can blind us, we can't turn our backs. As the rivers run green, we've been through our cracks. Like when a pig's crying, can't you hear her plea? Our actions are poison, can we start to see? So tell me now, what's the answer we seek? To leave the land in peace, or let toxic tests speak? Every choice we make weighs heavy like a stone. The price of our progress, what have we really grown?
We gotta face the truth, stand tall with our voice. For the lakes and the rivers, we got to make a choice. Every spray and every pour could lead to despair. So let's turn this tide, show the world that we care. Let's clean up the damage, it starts with our hands. To heal the broken waters, to protect our lands. Oh, the beauty can't blind us, we can't turn our backs. As the rivers run green, we've been through our cracks. Like when a pig's crying, can't you hear her plea? Our actions are poison, can't we start to see?
Together let's rise, make a change, make it loud. For the silent poison, let's break through the crowd.
In the yellow fields where the shadows play, a beauty wrapped up in dying day.
But beneath the surface, a tale unfolds. Whispers of poison, the truth untold.
The endless spray, it fills the air. A necessary evil, yet who really cares?
Fighting off the pests that steal our yield, while nature's heart slowly gets concealed.
Oh, it's a silent poison creeping in tonight, turning vibrant green to a veiled blight. In the fields of gold where the harvest should thrive, what's the cost of greed when the rivers can't survive?
Fertilizers bursting, bringing life anew. But with every blessing, there's a curse that's true.
Running off in the storms, through the soil and rock, toward the murky waters, a ticking clock.
Lake Winnipeg, once a jewel so bright, now murky green in the fading Leave the land in peace or let the chemicals stay.
This toxic test offers no release, while our future hangs like a broken flea. Oh, it's a silent poison creeping in tonight, turning vibrant green to a veiled blight. In the fields of gold where the harvest should thrive, what's the cost of greed when the rivers can't survive?
A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the imported solution. This song examines the market reality of sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, in Canada. Despite the push to use Canadian-grown canola for biofuel, major players like Air Canada are sourcing their SAF from foreign companies like Nest, a Finnish company. This is because Nest uses waste feedstocks, like used cooking oil and animal fats, instead of virgin crops. The waste-based approach is often considered more environmentally friendly, as it avoids the land use change issues highlighted in Song 2. Furthermore, Canadian producers lack the operational infrastructure and government incentives, like those in the U.S., to be competitive. The scenario highlights the irony of Canada importing a greener solution from abroad, while its own domestic industry struggles to get off the ground with a less desirable feedstock.
Why we'd buy our fuel from another distant land, while our own farmers struggle under China's cold demand. But Air Canada's deal with Neste's not what you suppose. It's a Finnish company with a method which everyone now knows.
In this quiet town the harvest cries, the soil's rich and warm, yet every sun-soaked field stays bare like a weathered charm. We fight to keep our dreams alive while profits drift away. Trade, my dear, has led us all astray.
We need to stand together against the weight of distant sales. Invest in local voices, let our homegrown spirit prevail. The imported solution leaves our farmers in despair.
Let's turn this tide and rewrite lives, if only we dare.
They make their fuel from waste and scraps, from animal fat and grease. A cleaner option on the map's a source that brings true peace. Our own safe production, a pilot's dream, a single hopeful try to use our canola fleeting gleam beneath the clouded sky.
But with no operational plants yet, no market to compete, we look to the horizon feeling bitter, feeling beat. The U.S. tax credits, they've outflanked our every chance, but still we're holding on to hope, waiting for our dance.
We need to stand together against the weight of distant sales.
Let's turn this tide and rewrite lives, if only we dare.
We're losing our identity as distant ships pull near, but this land of milk and honey won't see us disappear. With every drop of kindness we can build a brand new day. Our voices rise together.
It's time to find our way.
So gather all the farmers, let your voices rise like dawn.
Together we will cultivate the future that's our own.
No more looking overseas, let's believe in what we'll sow.
With the heart of every farmer, together we will grow.
So here's to every farmer, every heart that breaks the mold. Let's build our strength and dignity, unite against the cold. With the earth beneath our fingers and the sky above our heads, we're reclaiming what is ours, and we'll write the path ahead.
Wonder why we'd buy our fuel from another distant land, while our own farmers struggle under China's cold demand. But Air Canada's deal with Nestle is not what you suppose.
It's a Finnish company with a method which everyone now knows.
In this quiet town, the harvest cries, the soil's rich and warm, yet every sun-soaked field stays bare, like a weathered charm. We fight to keep our dreams alive while profits drift away. The greed of foreign trade, my dear, has led us all astray. We need to stand together against the weight of distant sails. Invest in local voices, let our homegrown spirit prevail.
The imported solution leaves our farmers in despair.
Let's turn this tide and rewrite lives, if only we did.
We make their fuel from waste and scraps, from animal fat and grease. A cleaner option on the maps, a source that brings true peace.
Our own SAF production, a pilot's dream, a single hopeful try.
To use our canola, fleeting gleam beneath a clouded sky.
But with no operational plants yet, no market to compete, we look to the horizon, feeling bitter, feeling beat. The US tax credits, they've outflanked our every chance, but still we're holding on to hope, waiting for our dance. We need to stand together against the weight of distant sails. Invest in local voices, let our homegrown spirit prevail. The imported solution leaves our farmers in despair. Let's turn this tide and rewrite lives, if only we dare.
We're losing our identity as distant ships pull near.
But this land of milk and honey won't see us disappear. So gather all the farmers, let your voices rise like dawn. Together we will cultivate the future that's our own. No more looking overseas, let's believe in what we'll sow. With the heart of every farmer, together we will grow. So here's to every farmer, every heart that breaks the mold. Let's build our strength and dignity, unite against the cold. With the earth beneath our fingers and the sky above our heads, we're reclaiming what is ours, and we'll write the path ahead.
A song sweet, the land, the loss, the reckoning. Scenario, the prairie's plea. The final song is a powerful statement about the inherent value of native grasslands. The prairies are not just empty land waiting to be farmed, they are a vital ecosystem. The song points out that over 70% of Canada's native grasslands have already been lost, a trend that could accelerate with increased demand for biofuel crops. These ecosystems provide essential services. They act as a massive carbon sink, purify water, and provide critical habitat for countless species of birds and other wildlife. The song argues that the environmental costs of plowing these lands for a green fuel are far too high, making the protection of these ecosystems a more important priority. It's a plea to recognize the long-term value of natural spaces over short-term economic gains.
These native prairies, once so vast, a silent, humble sea, now broken by a plow-torn past for all the world to see. 74% have been lost, their soil and roots upturned, a costly price, an empty cost for lessons never learned.
It holds the carbon deep inside, its roots a living net. It purifies the water where our promises are met. Oh, hear the prairies plea tonight, echoing in the golden light. With every heartbeat, every sigh, let's save this land before it dies. It feeds the birds and shelters life, the ones we barely see. It's a vital balm against our strife and offers a world of glee. They say there is no substitute for prairie whole and true, so why destroy it for the fruit of a green and shiny new? With every sunset burning red and every dawn's first light, we must remember what's at stake. land is best left on its own,
a haven for the wild,
a priceless gift for us to own.
a promise to the child.
Through storms and fires,
It will endure.
but will we stand and fight or close the door?
We sing for those who hear the call.
For every leaf that falls,
Together we can heed the ground.
with every voice we'll stand tall.
Oh, hear the prairies play tonight,
Echoing in the golden light. With every heartbeat, every sigh, let's save this land before it dies.
so hold our hands and tread so light. In unity we'll gain our sight.
Together we'll ensure it stays. The prairie song, the endless praise.
These native prairies once so vast, a silent, humble sea, now broken by a plow-torn past. For all the world to see, 74% have been lost. The soil and roots upturned, a costly price, an empty cost, for lessons never learned.
This land is more than just a place to plant a single crop. It's a sacred space, a saving grace, where the march of life won't stop. It holds the carbon deep inside. Its roots a living net. It purifies the water where our promises are met.
Oh, hear the prairies plead tonight, echoing in the golden light.
With every heartbeat, every sigh,
Let's save this land before it dies. It feeds the birds and shelters life, the ones we barely see. It's a vital balm against our strife, and offers a world of glee. They say there is no substitute for prairie whole and true. So why destroy it for the fruit of a green and shiny new? With every sunset burning red, and every dawn's first light, we must remember what's at stake as we continue this fight. Oh, hear the prairies plead tonight, echoing in the golden light. With every heartbeat, every sigh, let's save this land before it dies. The land is best left on its own, a haven for the wild,
a priceless gift for us to own, a promise to the child. Through storms and fires, it will endure. But will we stand and fight, or close the door?
We sing for those who hear the call, for every leaf that falls. Together we can heed the ground. With every voice we'll stand tall. Oh, hear the prairies plea tonight, echoing in the golden light. With every heartbeat, every sigh, let's save this land before it dies.
So hold our hands and tread so light. In unity we'll gain a sight.
Together we'll ensure it stays. The prairie's song, the endless praise.
Part 3, The Canola Conundrum, Canola in Crisis 2025. By Bill Buckles, analyst and Lake Winnipeg commercial fisher. August 16, 2025. References: Allison Bamford, How a Shift to Canola-Based Biofuel Could Help Make Up for Lost Chinese Market, BNN Bloomberg, August 15, 2025. Allison Bamford, How a Shift to Canola-Based Biofuel Could Help Make Up for Lost Chinese Market, CP24, August 15, 2025. Allison Bamford, How a Shift to Canola-Based Biofuel Could Help Make Up for Lost Chinese Market, CTV News, August 15, 2025. Alberta Canola, U.S. EPA finalizes recognition of canola's GHG emissions reduction in advanced biofuels, December 1, 2022. Audrey Brewer, airline announces investment in innovative fuel source as solution for common air travel drawback. Cool down, January 13, 2025. Birds Canada, Grassland Conservation Incentives Guide, 2020. Canadian Canola Growers Association, Canola growers see potential with clean fuel regulations, July 6, 2022. Canadian Council for Sustainable Aviation Fuels, CSAF submission to the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance, 2024. Canadian Fuels Association, Taking Flight. How Canada's first homegrown SAF signals a new era for clean fuels, December 2024. Ducks Unlimited Canada, Grasslands. Farm Credit Canada, U.S. policy impacting biofuel potential in Canada. Farminaut, revolutionizing Canadian prairie farming. How sustainable agriculture practices boost soil health and carbon sequestration. Feedopedia, canola meal. Government of Manitoba, the food and fuel debate. Government of Manitoba, State of Lake Winnipeg report. Government of Manitoba, Soil Management Guide. House of Representatives, State of Minnesota, concerns for phosphorus in the environment. International Monetary Fund, IMF, biofuel demand pushes up food prices. International Monetary Fund, IMF, food prices and biofuel mandates. Ken McGillivray, trade war with China could have devastating impact on Canadian canola farmers. Global News, August 12, 2025. Number Analytics, environmental impact of canola oil production, an analysis. Number Analytics, land use change and canola oil production. Number Analytics, Canola Oil, the Food versus Fuel Conundrum. Peter Schmidt, Nest and Air Canada signed deal to supply 60,000 tons of SAF. Keyanalyst, November 14, 2024. Purdue Extension, Biofuels and Their Impact on Food Prices. ResearchGate, Future of Canola SAF in Canada. Statistics Canada, Statistics Canada's Principal Field Crop Report for 2024, December 5, 2024. The Guardian, Biofuels, Worse Than Fossil Fuels, Secret World Bank Report, July 3, 2008. The Hub, Economic Coercion, 5 Takeaways on China Tariffing Canadian Canola and the Escalating Canada-China Trade War. Transport and Environment, Food and Fuel, The Real Connection. U.S. Canola Association, Canola Protein. Union of Concerned Scientists, All About Biodiesel and Renewable Diesel, by Jeremy Martin. Yadullah Hussein, Canola in the Crossfire, RBC, July 2025. Nest and Air Canada sign agreement for the supply of 60,000 tons of Nest-MY sustainable aviation fuel, Storage Terminals Magazine, November 12, 2024. Nest and Air Canada sign agreement for the supply of 60,000 tons of Nest-MY sustainable aviation fuel, Biomass Magazine, November 12, 2024. UN report weighs up pros and cons of biofuels, Cordis ND. Life cycle assessment and biodegradability of biodiesel produced using different heterogeneous catalysts and alcohols. A review, MDPI, July 2, 2024. Air Canada procures nearly 78 million liters of unblended neat Nest-MY sustainable aviation fuel for use in Canada. Air Canada Media Release, November 12, 2024.